Okay, I've
I'm gonna
accidentally
see us
started
at
the
the moment.
broadcast, so every audience member can hear us now, but I think sound is okay. Doesn't start until 11 officially, so there's only 2 people online.
Only us at the moment, isn't it?
There is Dale Papworth and Trent Murray. They can hear us as well.
Okay. I can't see them.
So we can see Aldo's screen, MotoTRBO training, that's all good. Aldo, you
Yep.
try speak.
Yeah. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Perfect.
Sorry if I didn't mean to start it. That was my fault.
No, that's okay.
Oh, it's not a problem. Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. Okay, well, I think we're all good to go. I'll mute myself, and Grant, you could mute yourself if you wanted to as well.
Yeah, we'll do. And Elder, you'll start the recording when you go, hey?
It's already started recording.
As of course.
Yeah. So the link will be made available to you guys, and you can distribute that to everybody.
Super. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Okay. Well, in 7
I'll
minutes we'll
introduce you to 11, Elder.
Yeah, we can just mute ourselves now until 11, and then you can start. And I'll stay on the line as well, just in case something.
Super. Thanks, Vivs.
Thanks
Thanks for your help, eh?
All right.
So, Grant, I guess you'll do an intro at the start, right? And then just throw to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll just introduce you and then throw it off to you. Okay, I'll give them a heads up that we've got 2 more sessions coming as well. And then I'll
okay, so you're going to reference that this is session 1 of
this is
session one of 3, and
yeah, and it'll be every Tuesday for the next 2 weeks at the same time.
Yep.
And the links have gone out.
I think also if you can tell people that they can type questions in the GoTo application, and then you can read them at the end, that would be good.
Can we see those?
Yep, you should be able to. Can you see them? Do you have that like bar on the side that says?
Type messages here. I can see the chat window. Is that where we stick it?
Aldo, can you see the questions?
Yeah, so Grant, there's a sharing audio dashboard, attendees, polls, and then questions. Do you see those?
I'll make Grant a fellow organizer, and then he'll be able to see them.
See that.
Okay, can you see them now? It's like a little tab. There's no questions there yet.
Yeah.
It should be under polls.
Got it. Yeah, got it.
Got it? Okay, perfect. Cool. All right. A couple more people have jumped on. Actually, no, but you should be able to see all the full options now. So you have all the same kind of features and functions that Aldo and I do.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, Elder lad, I'll introduce you to 11.
Yep, no worries. Great. Generally, we'll give probably another extra couple of minutes for people to catch up.
Yep, okay. Then. Morning, everybody. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes for a couple of more people to jump online, and then we'll get going. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this, the first of our of three actual information and training sessions that we've decided to put together. We decided that while you chaps are all sitting in isolation with nothing to do, we might as well give you some food for thought and some information. And we are very privileged folks this morning to have Aldo from Motorola to introduce and take us through our first session, which is going to be on the MotoTRBO DMR product portfolio. Next week, Tuesday, we'll be following this one up with an overview of all our MOTOTRBO radio systems and the topologies. And the Tuesday following that, at the same time, we'll be doing the application integration, which is all the applications that the MOTOTRBO system is capable of utilizing. Like I said, we are very, very privileged to have my good friend and an absolute knowledge base of everything Motorola, Aldo, to provide this information to you guys and to do this presentation. So without further ado, Aldo, I'm going to hand over to you, and thank you very much for taking the time out to present this to all of us. We appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning, Grant. Yep, not a problem. Happy to do this. Just thought I would also mention that with regards to question time, so if you have any questions on your GoToWebinar panel, you should see a place to allow to ask questions. If you can type your questions in there, and we can answer the questions at the end of the presentation. Those questions will go to Grant, and we'll go through them one by one. Okay, so as Grant mentioned, that we're going to start with session one, which is the talk a little bit about MotoTRBO, what it is, and the product portfolio. So let's get a start on. So the MotoTRBO is our brand name for our two-way radio, digital DMR two-way radio products. This product has been out for quite a while now. We released MotoTRBO in 2008, and it's basically the replacement for the analog radio portfolio. And we can do a lot of the analog functionalities in the MotoTRBO radios, and we also add all the digital functionality into these radios. The radios are defined to the European Telecommunication Standards Institute, also known as ETSI. And you'll see that a bunch of our radios are defined. There's two standards: the Tier 2 peer-to-peer and through repeater communications, and that's in conventional digital. And then we have also a Tier 3 digital trunking solution, and that'll be covered off in the later sessions. If you want to know any more detail about the DMR standard, you're quite welcome to go on to the www.etsy.org website and read all the details about that. Okay, so when we go into the digital world, primarily what we are doing is we grab our when we communicate with each other, we communicate in an analog voice pattern, and we grab that analog voice pattern in the microphone and we digitize it. We then send that through to a vocoder with some level of compression and error correction, and we then send that information as what we call voice payload information. Now, if we're also have things such as data and a level of embedded signaling like our IDs and that sort of information, that's also framed together to form the data IP packet. And then the final thing is that we then transmit that information in TDMA transmission. It's an FM form of transmission, and it's called time division multiple access. We'll cover that off in the next slide. So what TDMA allows us to do compared to the old analog format, in the old analog format, when we have our frequency allocated to us, our 12.5K channel, that channel will go either in simplex mode or via repeater to form that single channel and single voice communication on that frequency. What we do in the TDMA world is that we grab our 12.5 kilohertz frequency and then we divide it into time slots. You'll see slot 1 and slot 2 shown throughout this presentation, and we talk about the two time slots that we get. So we effectively double that capacity, and now that allows us, through one single repeater, we can actually have two users transmitting simultaneously through that repeater to give us two communication paths. One program to talk on slot 1, one program to talk on slot 2. Even though we are chopping the frequency into slots, there's no degradation in performance. It's undetectable to the human ear that you're actually only transmitting half the time. One of the side benefits of the TDMA is because we're only transmitting every second slot, we actually get a 40% increase in battery life compared to the old analog system. So one of the benefits of TDMA, or so in summary, the benefits of TDMA is we get two channels for the price of one, and we get a better battery life when utilizing that configuration. Or that technology, sorry, TDMA. So we'll see as we go through the rest of the slides that we always make reference to the MotoTRBO 2-time slot functionality, and in all the configurations that we discuss over the next 3 weeks, all support TDMA functionality. Digital audio becomes a critical factor with digital. So generally in very strong signal conditions, and we know that our analog audio can sound quite good because we have no background noise, or we have no crackle or pop. Yeah, we have strong signal, and the audio sounds really, really good. And with analog, because we don't do any sort of level of processing, you could argue at a very strong signal level that an analog will sound a lot more refined than digital. But what digital does is it increases our effective coverage across the whole signal strength spectrum to the point where you lose your signal altogether. So this can be seen from that graphic. If we were to compare analog and digital, analog has a much more linear roll-off of audio quality as we get further away from the signal source. And that dotted blue line sort of represents a minimum acceptable audio quality where we don't get any hissing, fading, or dropouts within that. So as you can see with the digital, we do get a perceived better coverage across a greater area. However, we do have a very sharp roll-off point with digital where all of a sudden you'll get a few audio artifacts and then it'll go off altogether. Whereas the analog signal will keep receiving until the point where you can no longer break squelch, but the audio within that would be very hard to hear and very much with a lot of interfering hissing and popping on that signal. So basically the digital increases the consistency of audio throughout that whole coverage area, but it doesn't necessarily increase the total distance. Okay, the RF signal still travels the same in an analog format as we do in a digital format at that 12.5 kilohertz, but just with our error correction and low and no hissing or popping, we get a perceived better coverage, better performance with that audio. But there are a couple of other things that we also need to understand when we talk about audio, and such as what the end user will experience with digital audio. Often people will interpret digital to be a superior signal, very clear, very precise. What needs to be discussed is how we use digital and what you expect in a MotoTRBO radio. So as I also mentioned earlier on the previous slide, you would more abruptly shift from a good to no signal condition. So it's a much sharper roll off, and when you start to get those digital artifacts, bang, you'll lose audio altogether once your bit error rate gets too high. I think one of the things that's very important to set the expectation right up front with your customers, especially if they're migrating from an analog solution, is digital will sound different. You tend to lose a lot of the tonal qualities in digital speech as compared to with analog. So analog's a very pure format of speech. Digital is turning our analog audio into digital bits, compressing it, and then transmitting it over the air, then uncompressing it, undigitizing it. So there is an element of digitization in that sound. So the vocoding process, so in the vocoder, in the radio, it reproduces human speech. And other sounds like music and tones are not reproduced accurately. So that's one of the great benefits of the digital, in that it does block out a lot of the background noise that's not recognized as speech, and that can or can't have some benefits. Some of the things where it might be a bit of a pain that it doesn't reproduce it is something like sirens and tones and things like that. Sirens and tones aren't produced equally at the other end, and they do actually sound quite different if they do actually get interpreted by the vocoder. Another thing that's also important to your customers to understand is that digital can introduce an end-to-end audio delay. So especially if you've got two users sitting in close proximity of each other and someone hits their PTT button to talk, the other user will hear that delayed audio coming out of his speaker. So that's important to understand that, and when you have two users in close proximity, you can get the effect of an echo effect where the received audio is fed back into the microphone, and that can cause a bit of a problem. So in those scenarios, we do have some settings in the radio to help reduce that effect of echoing, but also the ability, so a user should be turning down their volume when they're in close proximity to other users. The background noise reduction is quite remarkable with these radios. As I said, because of the way the vocoder works and it recognising human voice, it really has a very good ability to remove any background noise that's not recognised as voice. And it's a test that you can very easily do with some of your customers, especially the ones that do work in those high noise environments. And when I mention high noise environments, don't assume that we only talk about mine sites with compressors and then high noise, or sawmills with loud machines. Places such as shopping centres in the food courts and things like that. It's quite amazing how much of a high background noise that represents, and even in those environments, it's important that we understand that we can get rid of a lot of that background noise, and the audio sounds quite good when the radio is used properly. We'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. So what end users don't experience with digital audio is that it's not CD quality. As I said, a lot of people get confused saying digital and they think that it's going to sound crystal clear. We do have the fact that, first of all, our radio uses a vocoder, so it's a very low bit error rate vocoder. It's not like a CD where we sample a very high sample rate. We have a very low bit rate in vocoder. and we need to be able to deliver voice grade communications, and that digital audio quality is not analogous to high fidelity, high quality CDs. So we still have to get this information. We have to get the vocoder, we have to compress it very heavily. So we compress it at a 50:1 ratio, the voice, when running through the A and B E2 vocoder. And that's got to go down to 12.5 kilohertz bandwidth pipe. So considering all those limitations, we actually get quite a good audio out the other end. The other thing that's important to understand is digital doesn't solve historic RF or problems related to RF. So just like an analog system, if you've got system issues with coverage or interference, going to digital doesn't fix that automatically, and actually quite coincidentally, the digital can actually show a different symptom when there's levels of interference. In the analog world, when we get interference, generally we get the voice signal mixing together, and you hear a type of garbly audio out the other end. But you may, depending on how strong the winning signal is, you may hear some level of audio. However, in the digital world, when you've got two signals mixing and together and heterodyning, what happens is the vocoder picks up a high bit error rate, and once the bit error rate exceeds 5%, it will actually mute the radio. So the different effect is you'll get a muted, the radio will mute as opposed to plain garbled audio. So as we say that if you've got historical problems with RF signals in the analog world, they're just potentially going to sound worse in the digital world. So you need to make sure you've got good RF signal, no interference, good filtering, and all those aspects covered off. So one more thing I'd like to add while on this audio slide is just that how important I emphasize that the way the vocoder works and its ability to recognize voice over background noise is the requirement that you must hold the RSM very close to your mouth, especially as the noise gets higher and higher. In my mind, it's good practice to always have the microphone close to the mouth. And when we talk close to the mouth, we're talking 2 to 3 centimeters away from the mouth. If your users understand this and practice this technique, they should have quite a good experience in the transitioning over to digital and using digital radio. If they have formed bad habits in the analog world and holding the mics far away from their mouth, in the digital world, if everything's very quiet, you'll get away with being able to do that. But as soon as you get background noise, if you're not holding that microphone close to the mouth, you will get complaints of poor audio and poor audio quality. And that's because digital relies on the vocoder being able to recognize the voice over background noise. And the only way it can do that is holding the mic close to the mouth within a couple of centimeters from the mouth. You set that expectation right up front with it's going to sound a little bit different, and you must hold the microphone close to your mouth. You'll go a long way in ensuring that the customer has a good experience with the MotoTRBO radios. Okay, so now we talk a little bit about the some of the radio functionalities, and with regards to the MotoTRBO, some of the core features that come as effectively a function of the radio. So the obvious and most fundamental is the group call, the 1-to-any. That's the most common call in the MotoTRBO system. And we also now have the ability to very discreetly set up private calls amongst users, even though we still are sharing the same channel. All calling is done via IDs, types of IDs, group call IDs, private call IDs, all call IDs, and all these IDs must match for the radio to hear communications at the other end. So we can quite easily set up these calls and have the confidence that we're just talking privately amongst either within our own group or a private call within a group. All call is the ability to send a one-way voice call to a group of users, generally the ones that are sharing the same time slot or the same logical channel. And generally, you want to give this to a privileged operator. You don't want a person being able to do an all call across all users that are sharing a time slot within the system. Some of the other features that have been introduced in the MotoTRBO product is the ability to do a suite of transmit interrupt features. The first one we talk about is the voice interrupt. So when I have a user that's party to that call, so we're all in a call and I'm listening to that call, we can set up the user to have the ability to interrupt that user that's currently talking by pressing their PTT button. That will send a message to that user's radio to say, hey, stop transmitting, I need to transmit some sort of late breaking news or something like that. So have the ability to cut off someone's transmission and to take control of that call. It's a good feature, but be very careful again who you give it to. You more generally want a privileged operator to have that capability. Otherwise, everyone will start talking, cutting off each other's conversations. However, you might say, well, I don't want to give the user that ability at a voice level, but you can see the next feature is the emergency voice interrupt. That's probably something that's very important. So if someone actually were to hit their duress button and go into emergency mode, in that situation, we would like that scenario where the user's emergency will cause the currently speaking radio to dekey, and then my emergency will go out on that channel by interrupting that voice user. So we can set the emergency voice interrupt separately to a normal voice interrupt. Remote voice dekey, we might have the ability to dekey the channel, to clear down the channel. So the first two options actually rely on taking control of someone that's already keyed up the channel. If we just want to dekey the channel for whatever reason, if someone's hogging the channel, or if a user in a vehicle is sitting on his microphone and not realizing that he's transmitting, we can dekey that channel and stop that ongoing transmission. The last one, not used a lot really, but data over voice interrupt. It allows third-party developers to allow their data, to allow their applications that when data needs to go out, they can set it up to interrupt a voice call to send data to that radio. But again, not commonly used. Some of the signaling features that are embedded, such as the PTT ID. So every time I hit my push to talk button, I'm sending out my my ID of my radio. A lot of people may know it in the analog world as my ANI. But in the digital world, it's your radio ID, and this allows us to be identified. So anyone that's got a display radio will see the ID of the radio that's currently got their push to talk button pressed. Just like a mobile phone, if I enter someone's name against a number, then when someone rings me on the phone, I will come up with their name as opposed to just a number. In the MotoTRBO world, it's quite the same, that if I've got a display model radio, I have a contact list in the radio. If I program the individual names in the contact list, then I can see that as an alias. So when someone PTTs, it'll come up with their name. For example, it would come up as Grant or Aldo when the PTT is displayed on the other radios. Radios have the ability to send an enable disable command to other radios. Also can happen from a third-party application, and that's more likely where you would want to have that feature set. But we have the ability to disable the radio off the system. So if a radio were to be stolen, we can send a disable command to that radio. Obviously, the radio needs to be switched on and in coverage for that to happen from a radio level. That's where we have the benefit. If we've got a dispatch solution with a third-party application, we can set a radio disable command, and if that radio is not on, that's not a problem, because when the user would then switch on the radio while he's in coverage of the network, as soon as the application, that dispatch solution sees that radio, it'll disable that radio straight away. Remote monitor capability is basically the ability, again, generally from an application, but can be done from radio to radio, to turn on the and activate the target radio's microphone for a specified transmit time to be able to hear what's going on that channel. That's something that we'd more tie in with sort of like an emergency. If someone's initiated an emergency and for some reason they may not be able to PTT on their radio, we could do remote monitor of that radio and hear the communication from that person that's in that duress mode. The radio check, it's a bit like a ping, so we can call up a radio ID and send a radio check, and it basically just sends out a command to that radio saying, are you there? And if the radio is online and in coverage, I'll get a confirmation tone back in my radio, or a tick if I've got a display to say that that radio is there. If that radio was switched off or out of coverage, I'd get a fail tone or a red exclamation mark to say that could not get access to that user. The last feature we have there is call alert, and that's probably the ability, or that's the ability to be able to page a radio, another radio user. So I may have sent out a call to a user and they're not responding. I've done a radio check. I've confirmed that that user is actually online and in coverage. He may have stepped away from his vehicle, so I can actually send a call alert to that radio. That radio will then beep until that user comes back into his vehicle. When he comes back into his vehicle, he sees that the radio is beeping, and he will hit his PTT button, and it will call back, do a private call back to the user that sends that call alert to that radio. So this is more so at a radio and a system level. Restricted access to system is commonly we call it RAS. The RAS feature is basically our ability to prevent unauthorized users from getting communications through a repeater system. So in the DMR world, in DMR conventional world, or even in the trunking world, you have the potential that if you know enough detail about the frequencies and the contacts that are used, you could potentially clone a radio with similar details and provide a different talk group within the system, and you could get access to that system. The ability to set up a RAS key within the system, it now requires that a key be programmed into the infrastructure, the repeater networks, as well as in the radios, and that for our radio to communicate through that repeater or series of repeaters in the network, it must have the correct RAS key programmed in both the subscribers and the repeaters. RAS keys are not a privacy feature, so they're not encrypting the voice. It's just an authentication between the radio and the repeater to actually get into the system. We have other features called basic privacy and enhanced privacy used for encrypting voice, if that's what we're trying to do. So basically there are two methods to prevent the subscriber from accessing the system: utilizing the RAS key authentication in the repeater and in the subscriber, and they must match, otherwise we won't get through the system, and they're configured within the CPS. There's also another way where we can stop users. We can set up a radio ID range check within the repeater. This allows us to then define the number of IDs that are allowed to talk through this repeater. And if you're outside that ID range, you won't get access to the repeater. Again, this goes on the premise that every radio in a DMR network must have a unique ID within the system. One of the important things to note is that any authentication key in a MotoTRBO radio, be it a privacy key, a RAS key, or an over-the-air programming key, whatever the keys are not able to be cloned from radio to radio. So if you grab a radio that's got a RAS key or an encryption key and clone it into another radio, everything clones across except the keys. So there's no ability to get around that key functionality because when you clone it, the radio will prompt you to put in the key if there are keys that are assigned to those channels. Okay, so that's for system security and restriction on the system. Basically, MotoTRBO radios all support the ability to do a digital emergency functionality. The digital emergency, or could be also known as duress for some people, provides the ability for the radio to send that duress alarm, an emergency message, or we can also have it followed with a voice message to either a supervisory radio or a dispatch console, whoever that may be. So there's three formats of emergency. We have emergency alarm only, where the radio just enters emergency mode, transmits its ID and goes back to normal conversation. Emergency alarm with call, similar. It enters emergency mode, transmits its alarm, and then it actually stays in this mode and remains in this emergency mode because they're expecting a voice to follow. So a user would hit their PTT, make that call. When that emergency is completed, the user would have to clear down the emergency from their radio. The last one, emergency alarm with voice to follow, similar to the previous one. However, the voice to follow just means it goes straight away into hot mic. It's not looking for any sort of acknowledgement, and it starts its hot mic duration. And you normally program a timer and how many cycles of transmit and receive you want to go through. That's programmed in the radio. So three different options depending on what how your customer wishes to operate their emergency. When a radio goes into emergency, we can have it play an emergency search tone, emits a tone out of the radio. It's loud, attention-grabbing tone to help people around locate or identify the emergency initiator, especially if this has been initiated by a man-down function and that person's unable to make you aware where he is. You'll be able to hear and follow that tone of that user. Lone work is the final feature, is one of the features that we predefined time a reset with a user activity. So if I put a radio into lone worker mode, that user must do some sort of function to that radio in that time period. If no interaction is made, the radio will initiate emergency on its behalf. And the final one that we talk about is the man down, and that is basically controlled by what's called an accelerometer in the radio. It detects the movement of the radio. If the movement falls to a level predefined within the programming of how long it's laying down and how long it's in that lying down mode, it will also initiate an emergency call on behalf of that radio user. So we've pretty much got the different modes of emergency should cover most scenarios and requirements for customers that currently run some sort of duress system. I made reference before about voice privacy. RAS is not voice privacy. RAS was a key authentication between the radio and the repeater. This is where we talk about the radio's ability to have voice privacy. So we have a basic privacy, which is uses a single key, a 16-bit key, and there are a choice of 255 predefined keys within the system. Or we can go with an enhanced privacy functionality. The enhanced privacy feature has a higher level of protection. It uses a 40-bit key within the system, and the radio can store up to 16 different keys within this. And also our higher tier radios also have the ability to support AES encryption, which is the highest level of encryption, 256-bit key encryption. Again, up to 16 different keys can be stored. It's the highest level of protection in terms of the algorithm. It's higher than enhanced privacy, 40-bit versus 256-bit. However, this does require a license in the radio to use this feature within the radio. This is not a standard feature. The first two are standard, and the third one is a license. We'll talk now a little bit more about the product portfolio. So that's some of the core features and radio features. We look at the portfolio. So bearing in mind that the portfolio, MotoTRBO portfolio, is made up of a number of different aspects. There's the fixed equipment such as repeaters, application servers, control stations, etc. Then the non-fixed equipment are the portable radios and the mobile radios. And then, as I said, when we're covering off in the later sessions, we're going to talk a lot about the data applications and some of most of these are software type applications, and they either go onto an application server or in some other part of the system. So we're going to talk about the radio aspects for this session. So Motorola have quite a good portfolio of portable radios because in the channel space we sell to many different vertical markets, and then the different types of radios are generally defined by the type of market that you'll see. Some have a higher ingress protection rating, some as in whether they're waterproof or not, and some may have a higher dust rating. So it all depends on which market that you're looking at as to which product you would potentially sell into that market, and whether there's a requirement for an intrinsically safe radio will also be a determining factor. We'll have a look at some of the repeaters, bearing in mind that in that graphic, the two repeaters at the top have now both been discontinued and replaced with the SLR repeaters that are shown, and we'll go into a little bit more detail there. And then we'll have a quick look at the mobile radios. That portfolio is a little bit more compact than the portable portfolio. And with the accessories, so I'm not going into a lot of detail with accessories, just other than to say within our, if we talk about our portable radios, there are generally types of accessories are whether you have single unit or multi-unit charger. Most of the radios will have the ability to have different types of remote speaker microphones, what we call RSMs. You can have what we call the standard one, or the one that has impress audio. I'll talk a little bit about impress audio. Some having what we call industrial noise cancelling mic. Some have an active noise cancelling mic. So depending on your requirement would generally depend on the type of microphone that you want. Similarly, we have a whole range of surveillance types accessories, whether we have the one-wire receive only, two-wire with receive and push to talk and voice on one, or a three-wire surveillance where we have the earpiece separate to the PTT, separate to the microphone. So depending on the different requirements. We generally also have a variety of batteries, a slimmer, thin, lower capacity battery, generally to a mid-range standard type battery, or a high capacity type battery. So again, different varieties depending on the requirements for the customer. So we have a whole lot of different types of accessories. Sorry, I should also mention with the Bluetooth, with the audio accessories, some of our radios support Bluetooth. So there's also a series of Bluetooth type accessories that are available for our products. It is quite an extensive accessory range, and I'm definitely not going through the accessories in this presentation, but be aware that we do have an accessories brochure that is available, and we can talk with regards to ACE and see if that's available for you resellers. Okay, let's look at the product in a little bit more detail. So we have a whole bunch of different feature lists within our portfolio, and we generally categorize those feature lists into 4 or 5 different categories. So for example, here we'll see a bunch of features that are related to audio. Now, I'm not going to go through every single one of these features, but you'll see reference under the audio. We talk about things such as intelligent audio, where the audio automatically increases based on background noise. Impress audio, where basically the radio would recognize the type of accessory connected, and then it would optimize its gain settings based on the accessory. So an RSM would have slightly different gain values than, for example, a headset with a boom microphone that sits straight in front of the mouth. Do we have wind porting? Is the ability to or radio design to not have that when the wind blows across the mic, you don't hear that awful wind sound. We can adjust manual mic gains or automatic mic gains. We can switch audio profiles depending on our type of environment that we're in. Receive audio leveling, the ability to make allow receive audio come through at a consistent level, even though you might have some people yelling into a radio at one end, or a different type of accessory, or someone's quietly spoken. Receive audio leveling is more about leveling all that audio out so it all comes through at a similar level, that we're not always adjusting our volume up and down. Then we have some features where we talk about that it increases efficiency and productivity for the radio. Some of the features such as, again, not go through all, I'll just pick some random ones. So dual capacity direct mode. So in the early days of MotoTRBO, we spoke about 2 time slots in TDMA. That was generally achieved through the repeater. Now we can actually do 2 time slot functionality on a simplex frequency, and we call that feature dual capacity direct mode. So we can program the radios for a simplex frequency and have 2 time slots in that simplex frequency. We support GPS functionality. We support a high efficiency of GPS functionality where we integrate a synchronized form of GPS capability. We can add voice announcement files to the radio so it reads out voice channels, or even better, the next step up from that was we can have text-to-speech functionality where whatever channel we type in the channel name, it'll read out that channel name. We can program various buttons to do certain functions. We can the radios, some of the radios are fitted with option boards to allow for third-party software to be loaded and take control of the radio. We can do text messaging. The radios support over-the-air programming capability. If we have a Wi-Fi capable radio, we can do software updates over Wi-Fi. Then things such as over-the-air battery management, we can gather over battery data over the air from these radios. We can have work order ticket management, where we can set up job tickets on radios and through an application. The last one I'll just mention is the low voltage battery technology. That's actually the way we increase capacity in our and talk time in our radios and batteries is by designing our circuitry that it operates down to a lower voltage. So instead of a battery being considered flat at 6 volts, it now goes down as far as 5 volts. So we get that extra talk time by being able to operate to a lower voltage level. Safety and security, I mean, we've spoken a little bit about these already. Restricted access to system, transmit, interrupt, the different emergency features, the man down, the radio enable, disable, different types of privacy. I'll talk a little bit about hazardous location certification on radios. So some of these functions are all built around the safety and security for our customers in those environments that they work in. Connectivity, so we talk a little bit about, I mentioned the Bluetooth. We have Bluetooth accessories, so we can connect via Bluetooth audio. Bluetooth data, we can send forms of Bluetooth data on the system, or we can connect a PTT device and do an external PTT, Bluetooth PTT. Radios can be operated for telemetry type function. They can be integrated into digital phone patch systems and integrated into the Wi-Fi, as I said, for doing Wi-Fi programming on radios. And again, we'll talk a little bit more detail in the later sessions, but we talk. I'm going to talk about the different system setups with direct mode, single site, conventional IP site, connect, Cat Plus, and all those different modes. So they will be covered off in another session. So primarily, if we look at our repeaters, so the main repeaters that we said, as I said, the SLR series repeaters are now the shipping repeaters. We no longer ship the MTR 3000 or the DR 3000 repeaters. Primarily the SLR 5000, the one in the middle, that's pretty much the replacement for the DR 3000, 1 to 50 watt capability. You can see it's available in the different bands that we operate within our region. It's a 1 rack unit high device, as opposed to the DR 3000, which was 3 rack units. Very much designed with the idea of performance, reliability. It's definitely with airflow through using fans and tunneling of air, much more efficient and better than the 3000 series. If you look on the right-hand side, the SLR 8000, that's a 2 rack unit high device. Available in all the bands except UHF band 2. It's not released in UHF band 2. That has a higher output capability. It's also DC operates at 24 volts. I should have mentioned the SLR operates DC at 13.8 volts. Also, the SLR 8000 does support an internal duplex if required, and it has also an analog wireline card inside if required as well. Not utilised as much as it is the replacement for the MTR 3000, but as I said, the SLR 5000 is the common one. More recently, we added the SLR 1000. Now, the difference primarily between the 1000 and the 5 and the 8000 is the 5 and the 8000 are generally cabinet type racking. The SLR 1000 is able to be mounted on a wall or on a ceiling or out on a pole. There are different mounting hardware options depending on how you want to use it. It's IP 65 rated, so it's rated to be outside in the rain and dust protection. There's no fans, there's no grills where water or particles can get in. It is only 10 watt output, pre-duplexed. It does support the capability of having an internal duplexer, and with the internal duplexer, it is a 5 watt output for after the duplexer. Okay, so that's the repeaters. If we look quickly at the radios, this one is our very, very low level entry radio, the DEP 450. It's pretty much only operates from the 450 to 520 megahertz band, 16 channel capability. It's rated at IP54, and primarily it's very, very basic functionality. It's conventional digital, also will support dual capacity direct mode. A basic privacy is supported, and some voice announcements. Very simple, low tier, low entry type device. You can see along the bottom, the chart where it shows reference to direct mode, conventional mode, IP Site Connect, Cat Plus, Cat Max, and Connect Plus mode. That refers to whether the radio supports that mode of operation. If you've got a fully coloured in circle, it means it supports that operation. If you've got an open circle, the radio needs to be licensed for that operation. If there's no icon, a circle icon, then the function is not supported in that radio. So this is our lowest level, the DEP 450. We then move up into our professional tier, which is the DP 2000 series, the 2000E series. We have the 2400 and the 2600. One being a non-display, and the other one being a limited keypad with display. Notice that the UHF band covers the whole UHF band in one radio, so it goes from 403 to 520 megahertz in one band. Or you have the VHF model, which goes from 136 to 174. These will support, can be ordered with hazardous location certification. I will cover that off in another slide. Dust and water rating, it's IP67, so it's submersible to 2 meters of 1 meter of water, for 30 minutes. Some of the features are listed there. So we have, similar to before, we have the basic privacy, enhanced privacy, dual capacity direct mode. This also puts the ability to use radio management and go over the air programming, digital emergency. The radios will work in obviously direct mode and conventional mode and in IP Site Connect mode, so there's no licensing required. We'll make a reference to this in our next session when we talk about the different topologies, but we'll talk about Capacity Plus mode. This radio will support Capacity Plus mode, but it does require a license purchased to operate in Capacity Plus mode for this radio. This radio will not work in Cat Max or Connect Plus mode. From the 2000 series, we also have the SL2600. This is the sleek type radio. It's a thin form factor. Just be wary that it covers not the whole UHF band. It goes from 403 to 480 only. It doesn't go right up to 520. 256 channel capability, and maximum power would be 3 watts out of this. This radio does have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth functionality built into the radio. It's designed really for the hospitality type of and retail industry, so it's only rated at IP54. It's not waterproof like the previous radio, and it pretty much has a very almost identical feature set to the 2600, with the exception of the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So radio management, enhanced privacy. It's got Bluetooth audio. Wi-Fi as well. We can also do indoor location tracking because that uses the Bluetooth functionality. Again, along the bottom, direct mode, conventional mode, IP Site Connect are standard features. Cat Plus requires a license and not supported on Cat Max or Connect Plus. The DP 4000E series. So this is our high-end product. So it supports voice data and text applications. This radio has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 4.0 and GNSS, which is Global Navigation Satellite Systems. But be aware that it's only the 01 models support those functionalities. So you'll see that we can have a DP4400 or a 4401E, a DP4601E. We only have the E version, the 01 version of that, and the 4800 is the 4800 or the 4801E. So where you see references to an asterisk, that means that features are only available in the 01 models. So these are IP68 rated, so they can be they're waterproof. They can be underwater, under 2 meters of water for 2 hours and not be affected. They will support GNSS and indoor tracking location. Again, the 01 models, voice announcement and text to speech. Work order management, so the full keypad model supports work ticketing functionality. Radios are fitted with an option board, so third-party applications can be loaded onto option boards. A lot of the features are user selectable audio profiles, Sync Plus, which is single input noise cancellation, that's supported in this radio. We can do over-the-air programming when using radio management, and that will be discussed in later sessions. This also has the low voltage battery technology. With the man down, so the man down in this radio on the 01 model is native to the radio. If you buy an 00 model, it doesn't have man down native to the radio. You would need to buy the man down application that would be loaded onto the option board, and it uses us from the option board. Again, and all emergency features are supported in this radio. Again, now the radio supports direct mode, conventional mode, IP Site Connect, Capacity Plus as all as standard features, and Cap Max and Connect Plus are supported, but they are licensed features. You need to license the radio for that functionality. The DP3000E series, so we've got the 3441E, which is a 32 channel, and the 3661E, which is a 100 channel display. Effectively, these are the companion, it's a compact version of the previous radio, the DP4000 series. So primarily they do pretty much exactly the same functions as the 4000 series that we mentioned previously, with the exception that there's not a full keypad model, so there's only a limited keypad model. But again, if you look at the IP ratings, IP68, the band does the full UHF band in one radio. Voice announcement, text to speech, Sync Plus noise cancellation, over-the-air programming, over Wi-Fi capability, low voltage battery technology, built-in accelerometer. Again, all features that are pretty much the same as the 4000 series. It can be seen along the bottom. Direct mode, conventional mode, IP Site Connect, Cap Plus are all standard features, and Cap Max is an audible feature, a licensing feature, and does not support Connect Plus operation. Finally, in the portable range, the SL4010E, this is very purely designed in the in a form factor that's designed for the hospitality and retail market. Bear in mind that this radio is a digital only radio. There is no analog functionality in this radio, whereas all the other radios supported both digital and analog. Again, it supports Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability. It's unfortunately not a full UHF band in one radio. It's UHF 1, UHF 2 models. It's IP54 rated, again, not waterproof, again, designed for the hospitality industry. It does indoor location tracking, so there's no GPS on this radio, but it does indoor location tracking utilizing low energy Bluetooth. It does voice announcement with text to speech, work order ticketing. It also has an option board capability, user selectable profiles, radio management over the air programming, so accelerometer for the option board for man down functionality. So very much again similar to the DP4000 series on its capability, just bearing in mind that it doesn't do GPS. As far as functionality, it works in direct mode, conventional IP Site Connect and Cat Plus as standard functionality, needs to be licensed for Cat Max or Connect Plus. I made reference to hazardous location, so we call it HAZLOC for areas with explosive environments, be it liquids or gases. You may require a HAZLOC certification. Generally, the customer will tell you they have a requirement for HAZLOC certification, and just bear in mind that the radio must be ordered from the factory with HAZLOC defined. It cannot be retrospectively certified. So if you order a standard radio, you can't then have it retrospectively certified for hazardous location. The DP series radios ordered with HAZLOC conform to the certified to the TIA 4950 standard. It's available in the DP 4000E series, the 3000E series, and the 2000E series only. That certification is done by Underwriters Laboratories. They are the certifying body and is certified to the TIA 4950 standard. There will be UL markings on the radio, and a list of supported accessories are available in the approval products listing manual when you order these radios. So if you wish to order, so for an example, DP 2000E series radio model with TIA, you'll go through the process of ordering that model, and you'll notice now that they've changed the suffix on the after the -AU, it'll show -AU TIA, and then you select the option TIA battery option with the specific QA code. With those two now, with it ordered in that manner, when the radio ships, you'll see that you will get a sticker on the bottom of the radio to show the certification level for that UL TIA 4950 certification. You'll note that there'll be a sticker at the bottom of the radio, white sticker on the radio, and also on the battery. So it'll be a specific TIA battery that will come with the radio. So that process of ordering that is similar for, as I said, a 2000E series, a 3000E series, or a 4000E series radio. Nearly finished, we'll just go marginally over. So the mobile radio, so we have the DM 4000E series. So it's really the mobile companion to the DP 4000 series, DP being the digital portable, DM being digital mobile. Bear in mind, the mobile has to be ordered in sub-bands, so it's either UHF 403 to 470 or a UHF 2 450 to 520. The VHF is covered in one band, so similar to the portable, we've got Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 4.0 and GNSS. Similarly, we have an 00 and an 01 model, and only the 01 models support Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and GNSS. If it's an 00, there's no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth and no GNSS. They're IP54 rated. The handheld control head option, you can see that the 4400 and 01 is a numeric only, and the 4600 and the 01 are the full alphanumeric display model. The handheld control head, which can be seen in the top diagram, is a replacement head only for the 4600 and the 01 model. You cannot put a handheld control head on a DM 4400 or 01 model. It will not work. The radio supports GPS indoor location and Bluetooth tracking for the 01 model. And again, just like the portable, the work order ticketing, the option board, radio management over the air programming, over Wi-Fi programming, basic and enhanced privacy, transmit, interrupt, digital emergency, etc. And like the portable, direct mode, conventional mode, IP site connect and capacity plus mode are all standard features of the radio. You would need to license it for capacity max and connect plus. And the final product I want to talk about is the DP 4000 EX series, and you'll see there's also reference to the EX MA series. Just to be aware that we are about to cancel, we've just cancelled the EXMA due to lack of sales of that model. So these radios are designated as blue type radios. You can see the blue coloring in the radios. These radios are only available as UHF band 1, so 403 to 470, or a VHF model. It doesn't support the full UHF band. It's limited to 1 watt power output as derived by the standard. Its IP rating is IP67, so it is waterproof. Again, similar to the others, it's got voice data text capability. It's got a GPS receiver, an integrated GPS receiver, not on the MA model, but as I said, that's now been cancelled. There is an option board for the radio, but only in the 4801EX, not in the 4401. And then they have the digital emergency lone worker, radio management, transmit, interrupt, text to speech, etc. Be aware that this radio does not support Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, right? So GPS only, not Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Again, the operational modes, direct mode, conventional mode, IP Site Connect and Cat Plus are standard features. You only need to license them for Cat Max or Connect Plus capability. And similar to when I was talking about the TIA standard, the EX standard is a high-level standard. Again, these are the ratings for dust protection, gas protection, and mining. And generally, most of the radio, or the way the radio is done, is that we actually, the customer will generally request a level of standard, and we would give them the offering that these meet those standards. We never make a recommendation on what standard they need to follow. They need to tell us. So that's it for the slide deck to cover off the product portfolio. As I said, next Tuesday, we're going to look into the MotoTRBO system topologies. So Grant, I'm wondering if you have any questions that have popped up on the question.
At this stage, Aldo, there's no questions there. Guys, if you've got any questions,
Okay.
put them into the questions tab. I'd just like to reiterate quickly, and thank you, Aldo, for this insight. It's wonderful to get a full overview of what we have to offer. The biggest thing I'd like to raise quickly, guys, is the CB license keys, or the CB radios, the radios that are type approved to take the CB channels. Please be aware that only the full LCD displayed radios can have CB channels in them. Those are the only radios that are type approved with the ACMA for CB channels. This excludes the EX radio. That excludes the blue radio. That only goes to 470 megs. So you cannot put CB channels into that radio. It won't take it. All right. And if you're going to put CB channels into the radio, it is only type approved with the relevant CB license installed into that radio. You can put the CB channels into another zone, but if you do not have that CB license enabled on the radio, that radio is effectively not type approved for CB use. If you guys put CB channels into those radios, the onus is on you. Please don't come back to us when you get into trouble for it. Right, I've got a question coming up. You mentioned some of the radios can do multi-PTT. What models and how many PTT channels can be programmed from one handset? Not sure what that's pertaining
to. So the multi-PTT is only handled from the DP 4000 series portable, 4000E series portable. There's the Motorola allow a license to support that capability. So primarily it was actually designed for NASCAR racing, where they actually have their headsets and they have multiple PTT buttons on the ear cup. It's probably best if you have that's a very specific function. I do have all the details on the licensing for that, but there's very specific details because Motorola do not develop the PTT side of things. They left that up to effectively the race teams that build these to do that. I do have the specs required for that. So Grant, that could be a special request if you forward that through to me from that person, and I can talk. I can give more detail regarding the multi-PTT functionality, but it's very specific for that 4000E series radio.
Okay, and he is asking for a motorsport reason. So yeah, I'll send you the details from him. Yep,
for sure.
Any other questions, folks? Well, Aldo, thank you very much. Thanks for your time, and until next Tuesday. I think you guys need to stay safe, keep business going. We are an essential service, and we are all open. So please feel free to call us at any time. We are here for you. That includes Aldo. So if you do have any requirements, you do need anything urgently for something that's happening in your communities, please let us know, and let's get on top of it. If there are no other questions, I think we can wrap it up.
Excellent. Well,
Thanks,
thank you
Aldo.
everyone
Thanks
for your time.
Thanks, Marola, for setting this up. Vivian's in the background. Vivian, thank you for everything, and thanks for setting it up. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday, same time.
Excellent.
Thanks, Aldo. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, no
Have
worries.
a good day and stay safe.
Bye.